The voice referendum, the climate debate, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict have highlighted deep and emotive divisions in Australian society. So my question to the panellists is, do you think the media has a role to play in bringing balance into these debates? Or should they be free to come down on one side of the debate or the other, given that opposing views are going to be articulated by different parts of the media anyway?
Lay.
I haven't been in media for over 3 years, not my choice, but it's been great to catch up since becoming freed. And in fact, the day that my sentence ended happened to be the day that the conflict between Israel and Hamas started. So it was quite a rude awakening. And I was at a news awards recently where one of the presenters said, who doesn't love kicking the government? And that brought a laugh and cheers from the audience, mostly journos. And I thought how wonderful it is to be back in a country where you can say that and you can feel that, you know, keeping them honest is not just a journalist's mission, but also the responsibility of every citizen. And when it comes to the role of the media, I guess for the past 3 years, I have really experienced a very restricted and, I guess, one-sided media, because that was all we could watch in the cells. So to come back to Australia, where it is pretty much, yes, there are fractures. You have people who go to certain media who, you know, have views that echo their own, and that division does seem to be widening. But putting it in perspective, we are still a lot better. I mean, every country has its own dysfunctional aspects, and that includes media as well.
It's incredible context you provide about a free media. Osher, the question that Simon raises, though, about the role of the media, and essentially, if I can kind of paraphrase you, you're saying objectivity and impartiality rather than cheerleading for a particular side.
I think if there's anything we've seen in the last year, Simon, is that our relationship as a nation, our relationship with objective truth is crumbling. And if we are constantly swiping in our phone looking for a new relationship, as people do sometimes, but for a truth that doesn't make us feel icky sometimes, then we're in trouble, because we can leave ourselves open to manipulation, to anxiety, to dehumanising others. And we all know those things are terrible. Sometimes truth is something that you don't want to hear. And being with that, being with the icky feeling, is a part of having an objective truth that we can both agree on. Like, there's two things that are real: your humanity, my humanity, and reality. And if we can agree on those things, then we can debate anything. But if you deny my reality and I deny your reality, then we're stuffed. And I think the media absolutely has to have a job to do that.
Todd, look, I think, you know, certainly Australia plays a very strong role in commanding a position globally in terms of how it is that we're presented. But I think it needs to play a strong role in the facts of what it is that is happening here in Australia or elsewhere in the world. And I think there's an expectation from readers, from consumers, about this idea that what I'm reading or consuming has to have some semblance in evidence or truth or fact of reality. Osher, I think you're spot on in terms of that analysis. But the question for me is, who decides that? What functions, what regulators exist to ensure that what's being printed in the paper or being told on Q&A is correct? And that's a very scary idea and a scary prospect, I think.
Okay, so far everyone has told the truth so far, but if we're going to play this game, ready to fact check you, Charlotte?
I think there's two really important things in this discussion about journalism and kind of the future of it. And the first is that social media algorithms are completely dictating what we're seeing. And I think that has put us in these massive silos. And even to the point of the news that we receive, we're actually not getting a whole picture. So I think that divide is incredibly, corrosive for our society. But on the point of journalism, I think part of the problem is that journalists aren't paid enough. And I think that what this lends itself to is journalists, instead of being, unbiased and completely neutral, if you're a journalist, one of the ways you get more money is by having an opinion and by becoming a commentator. And that incentive to journalists, I think, really encourages them to be more outspoken on things, as opposed to being, that fourth estate that we so much need, particularly at the moment.
What an interesting observation.
I totally agree with that.
But it's true. You're absolutely right.
Yay! Great start.
It's true. You look at the way that people sign off, or people are interviewing if they're out in the field. What's the ascension? We make fun of this when I do my fake news show. The joke is that anyone out in the field always wants to be behind the desk, and so then they look for that one grab that's going to get. But do you think this is a bureaucracy gone mad? And then there comes a soundbite, and then some news boss goes, "Hey, you did really well out there.
Yes.
You reckon I want to do Sunday breakfast?"
But this is because that attracts clicks.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
which brings back to the saying, we get the government we deserve, we get the media we deserve. So I think we, as media consumers, should be more discerning as well.
And a lot of the outlets are obviously, media outlets are commercial entities, which I think that we do have to keep in the back of our mind, because it is hard to find the truth. I expect the truth from media outlets.
Without paying a lot for it.
But for me, I just go, we've also got a responsibility to be truthful with what we put out there from a media perspective.
But there's also a lot of different avenues. I mean, you and I are friends of Joy 94.9, Australia's only LGBTIQ+.
Look at that dropping of
I just came
the
from
gay
the
station
AGM,
in
so
Melbourne.
I
Just
had to,
drop that out.
It's allowed,
it's a
PK.
community radio station that does incredible work at telling a different story that we don't hear in mainstream, that we often don't see written in the papers, and that serves particularly our communities very well. And that side of community telling a story is something that we don't often see.
Party.